And welcome everybody to the newest episode of the Amateur Theory Podcast and the last episode of the year. So, anyone who's been sticking with us, we appreciate it. There's a good chances, based on our analytics data, that you're British for some reason. The majority of our audience, I think like 70%, is from the UK. Just a fun fact.
It's because of all the cups of tea I drink during the show.
But this is going to be a good episode because we got a double whammy for you. We're going to talk about the two big Christmas releases that happened, Soul and Wonder Woman. But before we get into either of those movies, we're just going to have a little bit of a upkeeping kind of stuff about what's going to happen with the podcast. We are going to be reducing the number of episodes we've been doing. You might notice that the last few episodes have been a little more sporadic, not necessarily on the same weekly cadence that they've been. That's because we're all busy. We increased the number of regular, podcasters from 2 to 4. Jake couldn't make it today, but he's going to be sticking with us for the long term, and so it's harder to get everyone's schedules aligned. And fortunately, this is not our full-time job. Maybe one day we'll get a viral hit or something, and then that'll change. But until then, we got lives, so we're going to start putting these out twice a month is what we're thinking we're going to do. So that's just kind of upkeeping there. But beyond that, we can get right into it, and I think we're going to talk about Wonder Woman first. So we're going to start with the spoiler-free review. Wonder Woman, 1984. What did you guys think? Oh, and if you're watching this, you might notice that me and Adam are in the same house. We are brothers visiting each other for the holidays, so we thought we'd, do it together on one screen. Like, why not?
No, they're actually using 2 different screens. It's just an optical illusion. We've upped our video editing skills.
That's right.
Playing lots of fancy games
all of
now.
Our new skills on this. This was really important.
So yeah, you got JL on one end and the Walden brothers on the other. And we're doing this off a laptop, so we don't have any of our recording or microphone stuff, but hopefully that won't be too big of an issue. I used to do all the things in the laptop. All the early episodes were on the laptop. It worked out.
Yeah, we're keeping it raw. We're keeping it real, like like truly like punk rock. We're getting like right to the,
That's right.
essence of the thing.
Okay, but Wonder Woman, 1984. What were your guys' thoughts?
Okay. I think I might have loved this movie.
Yeah?
Not in the way that I think the filmmakers would have wanted someone to love the movie, but I did have a ton of fun watching it. Okay. First of all, this is one of the most unsubtle films I think I've ever seen. But it's so like sincere in its overtness that I like kind of can't quite help but like respect it a little bit for that. Like, there's never a sense of like any like, oh, too cool for school ironic detachment. It's just kind of going for it and kind of falling flat on its face. But
yeah, parts of this movie felt like a cartoon in terms of like, like most of the superhero modern movies try to make it a little bit more grounded in reality. This one was not trying to do that. Like, it did not care.
This movie does not give a fuck. This is a movie that looks at you straight in the eye and says, like, yeah, I'm 2.5 hours long. What are you going to do about it? This is a movie where at one point, for a split second, I legitimately thought the main villain was going to start singing a song about why he's a bad guy.
And that wouldn't have
This is a movie. This is a movie where Wonder Woman fights a character from Cats the musical.
Yeah.
No, at the end there, like I was like completely ready for them to go like full like end of Evangelion, and people were just gonna start turning into orange goop. Like,
no, it was interesting. There was definitely some fun moments. I think I don't disagree with anything you said, but just to give some more critiques, I think that the movie was a little long. Like you could have cut out, you still could have had all the wacky fun and all the ridiculousness and not been 2.5 hours, especially in the beginning where it started out kind of slow. Honestly,
like the first 20 minutes of this movie, which is just like a flashback to when she was a kid, is
very unnecessary.
I don't know what it was in there for. You could have completely cut that out and nothing would have changed.
And the other thing that bothered me, maybe more than it would bother other people, all the marketing around this movie was about that it was in the 80s. Like the movie's called 1984. All of the previews were about making 80s jokes and stuff. But the fact that the movie was in the 80s is so in the background. This movie could have easily taken place in the 70s, in modern times. There's very, very little bits about it. There's a couple throwaway gags, right, about the clothing, the wacky clothing of the 80s. There's no 80s music, which is insane. It's just a Hans Zimmer soundtrack. And then the only thing that's somewhat relevant to the fact that it's the 80s, they kind of have the yuppie thing going a little bit, sort of, not really. And then the other thing is that the Cold War is happening, which is mildly relevant at the end. But for the most part, it's the fact that it was in the 80s is almost like an afterthought. And I was kind of, as a fan of the 80s culture, pop culture, I was hoping for more.
No, there are parts of this movie, because it takes place in DC, and there's a scene where they're in the subway, and then I think in the Air and Space Museum, and I saw that and I was like, wait, that's what DC looks like now.
Yeah.
Did DC just not change within the past 30 or 40 years? They're at the subway and I'm like, that's literally what the subway looks like nowadays. You can go and it'll look exactly the same. Yeah,
and there's I don't think there's any spoilers when I said there's a bit of a time traveling component. Not really at all, but you might have even seen it in the marketing. There's someone from the past and they're wowed by the new technology. None of the technology he was wowed by would have, the fact that it was in the 80s didn't change anything. There was, they could have even been funny about it. They had one joke there, but they could have even been funny about showing this technology is antiquated today and him being impressed by it. But they didn't even do that. It was just things that anyone would have been impressed by. I don't know. It's just I was probably overthinking it, but that was something that bothered me the whole movie.
I'm gonna add another criticism, and this is kind of jumping off the hard-on your sleeve earnestness from this movie, is that I understand there's an appeal to that, but I don't think you should use that as an excuse to be super dumb and lazy, which this movie often is. So I don't know. I think, because I feel often movies that are like that are prepared to be totally unsubtle, can also be really creative. They can also be really, really fascinating, or just really unique ideas that you're kind of doing bombastically, right? Whereas this
absolutely movie, there's nothing wrong with that per se.
Yeah, not at all. But my issue is that I felt this movie was doing that, and then they were also and therefore this is a movie for the children, I guess, or a little, I don't know, a little violent for children, but at the same time, it's just everything is just the most obvious thing that could happen. It's just always the most obvious thing that's happening in this movie. I don't know.
No, but that is the interesting thing though, is that this movie is it's you took the plot of one of the 80s, it doesn't have to be 80s, any kind of dumb kids superhero cartoon, and the complexity of that plot is about the complexity of this plot, but you stretched it out to 2.5 hours and made it a big budget live action movie. It's literally if they made He-Man the movie, but the He-Man plot was the original plots of the cartoons of He-Man.
It's a Saturday morning cartoon kind of plot, just I don't know,
and it's just strength. It's just stretched to the length of 2001: A Space Odyssey.
I know. It's that kind of sounds fun, but I don't know. I'm not going to say it wasn't fun at all. Okay, there were some
moments that made me actually laugh out loud at the absurdity of them.
Oh, there was There are more than several moments that made me laugh out loud. No,
It's just
like
I feel like if you're going to be absurd, then at least it should be like, you know, like fascinating or surprising. But yet it's more like absurd in like the way it's like, really, they're going there. It's like, you know, it's happening, you know it's going to come, and yet you still kind of feel like I don't know. That's kind of
felt like we were reaching like Tommy Wiseau levels. At some points, like...
Yeah.
No, it was something else.
It's, I mean, so yeah, like I can't really say that it's a good movie, but I had a ton of fun. Like, no, like after the movie is done, like later that day, I was just taking a walk outside and I started like just thinking about it, and I like started laughing out loud again, thinking about certain elements of this film.
There's one scene in particular that I guess we'll get into later, but that like I'm gonna be thinking about forever. Like, it's just like the absurdity levels of it. Yeah. So would you recommend this movie? And if so, who would you recommend it to?
I mean, yeah, I'd recommend this movie. I think we're going back to our roots here in so bad it's good kind of way.
So
no, just like a get your friends together, like sit on the couch and like sip a beer while you watch this movie.
Okay, fair enough. I'm gonna say I can't recommend it, just because it's so dumb for so long. I just the fact it's 2 hours and 30 minutes of just this like lowest, like really like lowest, like playing pretend in your backyard kind of like storytelling. It's just it's too much of it, too much of that, and I wouldn't recommend it.
I could recommend it, but only to, I'd have to be kind of partial to who I recommended it to. Like, you'd have to know up front, because some people just aren't as into the so bad it's good thing. I think like some people just can't appreciate it. So it has to be the kind of person I know that could find fun in that. Because a lot of people just think bad movies are bad. And this is not as like geniusly bad as The Room, not as geniusly bad as Trolls 2. Actually, you know what this movie kind of reminded me of? A lot, actually? Batman and Robin. I think there's like some comparisons there. Like, that's the kind of movie that, like, if you could enjoy Batman and Robin, the movie, and all its absurdity, then you might enjoy this too.
Yeah, and I love Batman and Robin. That's a great movie.
Because I also felt Batman and Robin ran a little long too, honestly. So this is like
I thought this one was more fun than Batman and Robin. Batman and Robin.
See, this is someone who doesn't appreciate those kind of movies.
I don't know. I felt like Batman and Robin, I had to avert my eyes sometimes, whereas this one was more fun than that. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
I mean, just know what you're getting into. It's a very, very silly movie.
Yeah. All right. And with that, we're going to end the spoiler-free section. So if you want to watch this movie, you haven't seen it yet, pause this, watch it, come back. But so I'm just curious about what.
And now we can just talk about fun stuff.
Right.
I just want to go over scenes, man.
So wait, the one that made me laugh the hardest was when she was lassoing lightning bolts across the sky. Like, she was swinging on the lightning bolts, and then and what was she, like, chasing like a plane or something? I don't even remember the context. It was just so absurd.
Or when she lassoed the missile and she used the missile to fly across into the town. Like, oh my god.
No, okay. Okay, I love all of this movie. Let's bring up the boyfriend. The actor's name is Chris Pine. I don't know the character's name. Captain Kirk from Star Trek. So in the movie there's like a rock that I guess like if you just touch it you can wish for something and it'll happen. So I guess she wishes for her like old boyfriend to come back, and he comes back, but he occupies the body of another person. Yeah. So he just like, it's like a literal like like being John Malkovich situation. Like he just takes over someone else's body. And they don't like think about this. She's like,
I know.
I know,
oh,
it's
okay,
just-
we're just gonna chill in his house
Horrifying,
now.
right? It's like they're all just like making fun of this guy that they killed. I don't. That guy's gone. It's Chris Pine now. I just.
But I think the movie also makes it clear that like it's still that guy's body. Like
Right.
she
It
said,
does,
like
right.
this is him, but it's still that guy. and
But
and they
he's gone.
sleep
Like,
together.
I don't know. It's just. The more I think, it's like.
It's kind of messed up. Like
It's messed up.
at the
right?
very end of the film, like he shows up, you know, and he doesn't know what's happened. And she just smiles at him and is like, is she thinking
starts
like,
flirting with this guy that she killed? I just. No.
I've used your body for sexual purposes and you don't know about it. I'm not gonna tell you.
Oh, yeah, they were in bed. It's like. What? It's kind of fucked up.
I know there's no word it's about.
Also, can we talk about how the like the whole ending, where it was like the nuclear bombs were coming, and the one guy was like floating in the air, like "Give me your power," and everyone in the streets was just like "Ah!" all at once because they were making wishes. And then the way that it solved everything was that Wonder Woman is like, "Renounce your wishes," and everyone at once was just like, "Okay." That was
Everyone's
the
going
least
crazy.
realistic
It's like-
part of the whole movie.
No,
That would never, ever, ever
I
happen.
couldn't-
I just love that. Everyone's wishing like, I wish this person was dead. I wish my country had more nukes. Blah blah blah. And Wonder Woman's like,
No,
guys,
like all the wishes were
please
super-
stop. It's actually not good to do that. Oh, okay.
I don't know. I knew I was in for like something like subpar is not the right word. Knew I was in for a cartoon episode when like just the wish stone. It's like there's like a geologist and she has the wish stone. She takes it out and she wishes.
Yeah.
And just the plot happens. Like that was a literal plot device, like an actual hold it up plot device. Like I couldn't believe like how blatant and like how like kind of like lowest like common denominator idea that is, just to have like the stone that you can. No, I
also thought it was hilarious that the big plan of the evil villain is like not to become all powerful, whatever. It's like, I want to be the wishing stone, and then he has to go out and convince people to make wishes. That's like half the movie is him going and be like, "Don't you wish for this?" And they're like, "Oh yeah," and then he's like, "Got another one!" Ah! He's just like going from person to person.
And there's such good wishes too, because he goes up to the U.S. president. He's like, "What do you wish for?" And the president literally just goes like, "I wish for more nuclear weapons."
not Ronald Reagan, by the way. It's just
Oh,
a
yeah,
generic.
I wish they'd done Ronald
Generic
Reagan,
president
but yeah.
man, because the 80s, like, you know, they really needed to have the pants joke, like what the cool parachute pants. Okay, 80s is done. You did it. We put it in there. No.
No, just I mean, like what I said earlier, I kind of respect just how much the screenplay doesn't care. Like Wonder Woman, she like I don't know. I don't know how the physics work actually in this movie. She like lassos her up, so she like jumps really high. She's in the air and she's like, you know what? I should just start flying. And she just starts flying.
Or it's like they're flying the plane and they need a way to get out of it, and it's
Right.
like it turns out she had invisibility power. Oh,
Yeah.
of
It's like,
course.
oh yeah, they can see
That's
us. What
the
can we
thing.
do? She's like, oh, maybe I can make it invisible. Invisible? Yeah, I did it with a coffee once. It's like, okay, woo, invisible jet.
And then they're flying. And like a bunch of like fireworks start going off.
Fly into the fireworks.
Let's fly right into that.
Not for any like plot reasons, just because it was cool.
Yeah, it's like I understand that the invisible jet is a thing from like the story, but like just for the sake of like people who are watching this who maybe aren't familiar with the deep lore of Wonder Woman, it's just like
you know what that looks like, right? It looks like the writers were like, how did they get out of this? Can she do invisibility? She can do invisibility, right? it's just really poor. It's piss poor.
And they're like, what if she just flew herself? And they're like, we'll do that later.
The audience is gonna be so surprised. No.
Yeah, and I love our boyfriend from like World War I just like hops into a plane. He's like, yeah, I can do this. Aviation technology hasn't advanced that much.
Yeah, it was definitely something.
Oh, I had such a blast watching this. It was so much fun.
So were you never bored the entire time? Like,
So-
I would get second winds. Like, I would get kind of bored, and then they would do something crazy, and it would, like, pique my interest again, and then it would kind of lull. The ending was all crazy all the whole time. Like, the last, like, 40 minutes was just, like, bonkers the entire movie.
I'd say like the first like 40 or 50 minutes is definitely like the slowest part. Like, it filled
Honestly,
with like the superfluous material that you didn't need.
and because this is one of the major problems, because like that 40 or 50 minutes, like keep in mind that this movie is never smart. It's never like the storyline is like really like doing something like really like something that actually requires anyone to think for a second.
Yeah, the motivation of the villain. It's like, what do you want this? He's like, no, I only want more. Always more. And that was it. That's the whole motivation for everything. It's just always more.
And it's just
make more wishes.
So the thing is that this is true. The entire plot, this kind of like this kind of don't think about it kind of storytelling. But for the first 50 minutes, it's slow. How can you be slow and also be that like, you know, like just not good? It's like.
Can we also appreciate Kristen Wiig's wish? It was like, what do you wish for? I want to be an apex predator. Becomes a tiger monster so she can fight.
He becomes a cast member of Cats.
Can we also talk about how Wonder Woman was like beating up like bad guys the entire thing, but then when Kristen Wiig decides to beat up like a rapist, then it's bad music. She's a bad person for beating this person up. Just like, it's like, why?
I love that because the movie's like, it establishes like before she makes the wish, like her character I guess is very like, you know, like
very nice,
timid and shy, but she's got a good heart. She feeds the homeless dude on the shelf, and she becomes a bad guy later, I guess. Like she's like kicking the shit out of this like pervert dude who like kind of deserves it, but she's like just you motherfucker. He's like bleeding on the street, and there's this like music sting, and she's like standing. She's like, "Yeah, I want to keep beating you up." And the homeless guy like shows up out of nowhere. He's like, "Oh my god, what are you doing, beating the shit out of people?" Yeah.
And she's just like, mind your own business.
Dun dun dun.
Now that is like Game of Thrones level of like character change, like going from like totally normal to just like not normal anymore. Like you're a psycho killer, just very suddenly. Yeah. And then there's the villain's son, who is like his purpose in the movie is a little questionable the whole time.
Who it just seems like he's like inside that one like office building like floor for the entire duration of the movie.
Except for when he's in the middle of the street randomly.
Oh yeah, he's like comes out of the woods. Like
he comes out of the woods, all of a sudden he's like in the street, all his cars. And the villain's like, what have I done? Like, did you put him in the street? Like, what? Why was that related? My power has made my child get lost.
What?
Oh, so much wrong with this movie, which makes it so good.
Well, okay. Does anyone else have any like final thoughts on Wonder Woman?
Not really. Like if we keep talking about this movie, we're just gonna find like more stuff to make fun of. Like
This is the whole thing. It's just
yeah.
it's one crazy thing over another. I think it was. I guess you guys didn't find it as crazy to me, but I'm never gonna get it over lassoing lightning bolts. That was just such a ridiculous. Like it was lightning, and she would lasso the lightning bolt and swing like Spider-Man to the next lightning bolt, and then would like travel across the sky when she wasn't flying. You know.
Dude, dude, this is a movie where anything can happen. Like,
Basically,
let your imagination run wild.
I mean, they literally have a wish machine.
Yeah,
That, like,
But
make
I mean,
wishes,
like,
so
at
like
the same
literally
time-
anything could happen.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a movie where anything can happen, but at the same time, don't expect to be like super surprised. Assume like I feel like you'll get a sense at the beginning. It's like, oh, everything that's happening is par for the course in this movie. That at least that's what it felt like for me.
But that's Wonder Woman. But there was another movie that came out this Christmas, and this movie, I'm just gonna assume everyone liked it. I guess Jail, if you didn't, you can share that. But the movie Soul was the Pixar's newest film. Came out on Disney Plus. So again, kind of spoiler free. Top line, what did you guys think of this movie?
I have a lot less to say about this because I don't know. I think I'm kind of at. I think I've sort of reached the point where I'm of the opinion now, like, where I can just kind of say, like, it's a Pixar movie.
Mm.
You probably know if you're going to like this movie before you watch it, like, which isn't a bad thing. Like, it is a good movie. Like, it's charming, funny, quite inventive at parts. It's a good movie. Watch it. I just don't feel like I can really say that much about it or like add to it, like other than like it's a Pixar movie.
One thing that I kind of thought that I'd be curious about your guys' opinion on, because I agree, I thought the movie was excellent, but it seemed like a movie almost made for an older audience than typical Pixar. Like the main character is literally is about a midlife crisis, is what the movie is about.
Yeah.
It's like a middle-aged man having a midlife crisis, and that is the whole thing of the movie. And so much of the conflict is based on, like, you know, you are what you do kind of stuff, which doesn't apply to children very much. So, like, I don't know. Did you guys feel that this movie maybe was... I don't know if it was intended for an older audience, but it just almost felt like a lot of this stuff would go over, like, a young child's head compared to other Pixar movies.
I think certainly like the message was I think like this is, as far as Pixar movies goes, this is one of like the most complex messages that they've ever had in a film. And it's actually I was kind of thinking about this because I think it's also true that I'm somewhat struggling to think of things to say, and part of that is that the movie itself had a lot of things to say. It covers a lot of different ideas associated around its subject. And it like, and honestly, it's like the way that it plays out its subject through like this grand kind of like celestial like concepts is just really, really fascinating. I really, really enjoyed it. I think it's not as immediate as some other Pixar films, but I think that it's probably the Pixar film that I would most like to rewatch that I can think of right now, because just I feel like there are things to pick up on in that movie that I missed the first time around.
How would you guys say it compares to? So I think. Am I correct in saying that both of your favorite Pixar movies are WALL-E?
That is my favorite Pixar movie.
Yeah, I'd probably say WALL-E's my favorite.
How does this, rank up compared to that? You know, is this like in the top 5 Pixar movies, or is this like a mid-tier?
It's hard to say. I mean, because this is the thing with WALL-E. I watched that when I was pretty young, and I think there's a bit of that like nostalgia-ish factor. But WALL-E also just, I think the kind of like genre that it's set in just makes it somewhat more appealing or endearing to me. I kind of like the futuristic sci-fi setting, and like, oh, it's actually dystopian. The movie doesn't feel like a dystopia, but it kind of is actually. Like the world's like
both
screwed.
It's dystopian in the ship, and it's dystopian on the on Earth, obviously. But
yeah, just has a big smiley face around it the whole time. So, and that always appealed to me when I was younger. So it's, I mean, I'm not going to say this movie like takes over Wall-E's spot, but it's, I mean, I'd say it's up there with like any other like good Pixar film.
It's an excellent film. I think that the way I would kind of see it is that it doesn't top Wall-E for me, just because Wall-E has just certain kind of images and a way of storytelling that is just so impactful that I don't. It would be very difficult for a movie to unseat Wall-E over, like, as far as Pixar films go. But what I think, because I think that part of the concept of this film is that it's not trying to tell a super like just really impactful kind of moment to moment story. Instead, it is telling a story, obviously, but instead everything feels a little bit more loose. Not because it's not meticulously planned, it is, but because every single part is about considering its ideas. And so it's less about these very specific moments that just strike me as really, really like brilliant kind of just storytelling.
That's a good point. This one doesn't have as many like really memorable scenes that you just like, but the movie is just pretty interesting all the way through. So, I mean, I definitely think this is one of the best Pixar movies, honestly. Like I'm comparing it to other Pixar movies in my mind, and I think this is the better movie. But I guess I kind of get what you're saying too. But like some of the like there's gonna be quotes from this movie that I'm gonna remember. The one about the fish in particular.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of when you said that. Yeah.
Yeah. So and then it's just this movie just felt like more mature. And I mean, Pixar movies are always good about having like mature themes mixed in with kind of kid friendly, but this one really, really felt like it just felt like a movie for adults in a way that other Pixar movies don't. And I as an adult, I appreciate that. I don't know. I'd be actually kind of curious about what like a young child would think of this movie. I don't know how they would feel about it. Like there's the kind of the spunky spirit character is probably the most appealing bit, or is kind of like the character who does all the wacky slapstick kind of humor. And I guess the pirate guy is kind of fun, the hippie pirate. But for the most part, I mean, the movie is really about this guy, this middle-aged guy who's having a midlife crisis. And like it's kind of as depressing as it just sounded right there when I said it. Like the Pixar can like wrap it up in so many ways, but it really is kind of like it's an interesting I don't know.
Yeah, once we get to the spoiler situation, I feel like I can clarify a little bit what it is I've been meaning with some of the things I've been saying. But yeah, major takeaway I would say is just that it's it comes like all Pixar movies kind of come to a conclusion. Like for example, Wall-E. It gives a conclusion about what it means to really live, right, or something like that. Or Inside Out. We need all of our emotions in order to lead a fulfilling life, etc. Right? And this movie does that too, but I feel like it's also a lot harder to pin down a little bit the implication of its message.
Well, one thing was the ending is like very much a non-ending. I think that was on purpose. And it actually surprised me.
The movie like does just kind of like end. Like it kind of caught me off guard.
Maybe a little bit. Or maybe I don't know.
Given the message it was doing the whole time, I think the non-ending makes sense. but it wasn't what I expected it to happen. I was expecting an ending, and we didn't really get one, but it works. It actually it had made me think about the ending afterwards, kind of like the Sopranos ending, right? Like it's supposed to make you think. And I think this is actually better than the Sopranos ending. So, for what it's worth. But yeah, no, I definitely feel like I could recommend this truly to anyone. Like I don't know if there's, this is just one of those movies I think are just kind of like could be universally liked by anyone. Pixar is generally well liked by pretty much everyone, but this one I think this movie could be appeal to people who aren't even Pixar fans, because it does feel just a little bit different, a little bit headier, a little bit more mature feeling. But I think still, it still has enough of that Pixar charm that it probably would appeal to all ages, if maybe not as much as some of the other ones.
Yeah. And before you head into the spoiler-free section, I just want to note the score in this movie is fantastic.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the main characters, into jazz, so we get our cool jazz stuff, but then also Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross do half the score, and it's not like a jarring shift like when their music plays. Like it's kind of very seamless. It always fits into the scenario.
Kind of a tangent, but I've been appreciating that Trent Reznor, I always kind of associated him with a sound, even when he did soundtracks. But like with Mank and this, I feel like he can do it all. He's just whatever fits the movie. He can make it.
I've always said he's a genius. So.
But okay, we can leave it there. This is the spoiler section now. I guess let's start, if that's okay. We'll start with the ending, because I was so expecting him to end the movie by quitting the jazz gig and teaching Trombone Girl. I was so expecting that. I was waiting for that to happen the whole movie. It was like, really what you're good at is teaching. Like there was so many things about that. Like he taught the kid, the drummer kid, he taught the spirit, right? Like it kept on showing over and over, like this guy is really, really good actually at teaching. He's like that's his true skill. And so I kept expecting like that to show up. But then if they had done that, that would have undercut the message.
Right.
That you're not, what you're good at is not your purpose or whatever. You just need to live. So the actual ending where he was just like, it's a beautiful day, and then that's it. And you don't know what he did.
I'm actually really surprised
cool.
how far, and this is like why the movie feels like kind of fuzzy to me in some ways, is that the amount of groundwork they laid in just to like undercut that groundwork for the real message was like pretty impressive. For example, while the soul girl is like with him, she keeps mentioning this girl in his head. Okay, and it brings it up like multiple times, and they just forget about her. At the end, they don't even bring her up again.
Right.
And it's just, and it really sells the idea of, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know that, like, I'm not forced into the direction, because the whole point of this is not purpose. We're not trying to figure out what our purpose is. Our purpose is to live, right? We're just trying to, you're just trying to live the life in the way that makes sense to you. But like the fact that it did that makes, I feel like the movie, like it doesn't give the movie that sense of like inevitability that kind of Pixar movies generally tend to have. I'm not saying Pixar movies are predictable. They're not. Pixar movies still have a sense of it's going somewhere, and in this movie it did the opposite of that. It's like you felt like it was going somewhere, and then the whole point of the movie, like what they were trying to convey to you, is that no, it doesn't. It going somewhere is against the idea.
But again, it didn't feel like, what was so genius about it is that you didn't expect that this, like the theme of just live is not revealed until the end. But like in reflection, and they do like little flashbacks, you're like, oh yeah, that's totally what the movie was building up to the whole time. Like I didn't see it until it was stated for me, but like that's totally what they meant. Like all the things about like maybe walking could be my purpose, and when the guy was like, that's not a purpose, like that was just like a throwaway line. Like it was nothing, You didn't think about that too hard until
they
after the fact.
recontextualized it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, whoa, that was deep. What if my purpose is just walking? Like, what's wrong with that? So yeah, this movie was a thinker, and I really liked that about it a lot. Again, I would just be so curious about how this does for children. I mean, this is just like the I don't know, the Wikipedia reader in me, who just like wants to know things. It's not important to me, and I don't have kids. I don't need to. Who cares? But I would be really curious about how they would feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine most kids would like it, just because I mean, there's enough like for lack of a better word, like silly stuff, like cartoony stuff. Like you got the hippie guy driving the hippie ship.
He
and
ends up with a cat.
Yeah, it's colorful.
It's filled with hijinks still, but it's just Though I have to say, like I don't know. I don't know if brave is the right word, because it's now kind of expected of Pixar to be more brave not to do something like this for them. But I'm just I don't even know if audacity is the right word, but just the idea of like telling your story in the context of this is existence. This is like the beginning and end of life. It's like this middle-aged man. It makes sense though, because the whole point of a midlife crisis is there's some kind of like you're having some kind of like meta issue, right? Like what am I doing, right? And then the fact that they put it's a what is the universe doing? It's
How
just
much
a
you want to bet
fascinating-
the screenwriter was having a midlife crisis? That was a secret. So you're right about what.
I like it in the middle of the movie when the character just turns to the camera. It's like, "Hey kids, have you ever heard of Jean-Paul Sartre? Have you ever read Being and Nothingness?"
But it totally played out like that. It played out in that setting. And so it's just, I don't know. The whole movie, the more I think about it, the more like I'm impressed by this movie. Just it's really, really good.
Yeah, and like what I said there, I wasn't trying to necessarily say this movie's like has an existentialist bent, but it has like those heady, I guess, kind of philosophical like questions, like you're alive, like your existence. Oh boy, like what about it?
What did you guys feel about the world building? Because they had some interesting ideas about like what the afterlife and what the pre-existence is.
So here's an interesting thing that actually occurred to me when I was looking at the Bridge to Death, the blinding light.
Mm-hmm.
There are some artistic depictions throughout history actually of like kind of death, and they actually tend to have similarities. Specifically, they look like that. There's a famous picture of like people being carried up with angels, and I wouldn't be surprised to hear, I don't know if it's true, but I wouldn't be surprised to hear if they modeled that image of that light based on that painting, because it's so it's kind of a recurring.
I mean, it's like a literal stairway to heaven.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that maybe what I'm saying, the point I'm making here is that I wouldn't be 100% surprised if these ideas were actually based on tropes that currently exist in culture. Not necessarily popular culture, but culture. Like, I wouldn't be. So I don't think it's just obviously there's like a lot of Pixar things go to the here's the the anxiety section, or like pavilion and stuff like that. I'm sure there's no precedent for that. But what I'm saying is that I wouldn't be surprised if some of the things, like maybe the figures and stuff like that, are based on some
The
real
abstract
inspiration.
art people.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, that whole idea of the accountant was interesting.
Sorry?
The idea of the accountant being the villain, who's like all the accountant does is just like this celestial counter who counts souls. Is
and they're not even like really like necessarily
he's not
villain,
right? He's just trying to do his job, and like that's, and also he's kind of self-aggrandizing a little bit. Like he wants to do good. I thought the more interesting characters though were the other celestial beings, who were just so they managed
nonchalant about everything.
Yeah, but also so genuine at the same time. Like they were like you could tell everything they did was like filled with like the utmost love of humanity, right? They were just so cheerful and stuff, and it didn't feel fake. Yet at the same time, they just didn't care about anything. Like literally nothing was important, and they were just like, "Oh, great." I don't know. It's hard to the way that those characters were written was just really interesting to me. And they did feel otherworldly.
Certainly.
Yeah, no, like I love the kind of depiction of the afterworld or whatever, the other celestial plane, and like all the weird things that came with it. Like I like the one zone is like a representation of literally like people like when they're like, you know, in the zone, like engaged in an activity, and they're just so deep inside something.
And then how the in the zone people and the lost people were like two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, I like how the lost people are like almost these like eldritch like googly monsters.
I also loved the idea that like all these like, you know, hippie meditative people are like crossing into the plane of existence on this spare time. They're just misunderstood.
Going on voyages through the Elseworld.
Yeah, they're like literally listening to like Bob Dylan.
Yeah, they're like driving this tie-dye pirate ship. That whole thing.
Yeah, like is it the guy called like Moonwind or something?
Yeah, right. That whole thing was great.
Yeah.
And then you know, I appreciated the dichotomy of this person who was living in the body of this midlife crisis person, and it's just like so you know, not cut up in their head about their identity, kind of like going to the
Right.
and that makes things like better relationships and like more adventurous.
Experiencing everything for the first time and finding beauty in it, you know.
Yeah, it reminded me of I don't know if you've ever seen it, but there's this German film from the 80s called Wings of Desire. But it's like in this movie, like in the story, they're like angels that inhabit the world. Like people can't see them. But they kind of go around just like, you know, comforting people. But there's one angel who like wants to like become human, like to like actually like experience like what being human's like. And like when he does reach that point, like, you know, he's like just so like, you know, like enamored and amazed with just like experience. Like I think at one point like he's like bleeding or something, and he like goes up to someone, he's like, wow, what is this? What's happening? So
Interesting.
and there's like a kind of like a comforting beauty to that. Like it's not about like, oh, your purpose, you have to do this, you have to do this. It's like just take a minute and like enjoy just existing, you know, kind of like a deep state of meditation almost.
Yeah. And then in case anyone was curious from earlier in the episode, the fish quote, see if I can do it justice. There's an older fish and a younger fish. And the younger fish asks the older fish, you know, I want to get to the ocean. And the older fish says, you're already there. And so the younger fish looks around and says, like, this is just water. I want to go to the ocean. And so it's the that's just a really cool quote about you know,
that was the most
Stop
memorable
smells
part
of
of the movie
roses.
to me. Yeah.
Yeah, same. That like kind of like struck a chord a little bit. Well, it was pretty cool. Overall, a great movie. 2 thumbs up, 3 thumbs up. All the thumbs.
My eldritch tentacle lost souls thumbs up.
All right. Well, we're gonna wrap this up, but we're gonna do a little bit different. Usually, this is where we would do like what we've been watching, but instead of that, since it is the end of the year, I thought instead of what we've been watching, we could talk about what we're looking forward to in 2021 in terms of like film and like stuff. So I will start really quick just because I'm really excited that Cobra Kai season 3 was going to come out on the 8th and they moved it to the 1st. So I am all pumped. That is definitely my show of the year.
This is like the fourth
So-
episode in a row. I think
know.
we brought that up at the end. Just
I
always
can't even
talking
tell you how
about Cobra
excited
Kai.
I am. I feel like it's so like I joined it right at the time, right? Like I got in the ground floor right as the next season was about to come up, so I'm prepared for the new seasons. I can watch it as soon as it comes out. Besides that, the movie I'm most excited about is the new James Bond movie. You know, if you've been watching this for any amount of time, you know I'm a huge James Bond fan. So extremely excited about this. Probably Daniel Craig's last movie. Hopefully it is an improvement on the last one, which is the weakest Craig movie, although
Which
I think
sucks.
I don't hate it as much as the rest of this panel. But it could. There was room for improvement, so I hope that they do that. That's probably what I'm most excited for. What about you guys?
Well, I'm definitely most excited for Dune, which actually, and like the James Bond film, should have come out already, but what can you do? But yes, I like Dune. Great novel. I'm also one of like the 5 people in the entire world that actually like the David Lynch film version of the book, but I do really like Dune, and it's Denis Villeneuve directing it. He's had a fantastic track record with his filmography. I mean, I loved Blade Runner. I loved Arrival. This guy can do sci-fi. He can do epic sci-fi. If there was anyone I could pick to direct a Dune film, it would be him. So yeah, I'm so excited. Like I'm gonna go to theaters to watch it. I need to see that on the big screen. Yeah.
Even though it's that'll be one of the HBO Max release things.
Nah,
Really?
this one I'll go to theaters. This, like, if I had to pick any of them to go to theaters for, this would be it. Like, this guy can put a movie together and make it look beautiful. Like Blade Runner, and I mean, like,
Yeah.
I guess it's not John Deakins from Blade Runner who's doing the cinematography this time, but I imagine like it'll still be good, probably. So
What about you, Ad?
Since you already said Dude and already saying its praises, I'm going to go with Conjuring 3. I really like Conjuring 1 and 2.
You think it's going to be more of the same, or are they going to like switch up the formula?
Well, I mean, it depends what you mean by the formula, because like
They investigate. There's a ghost.
Sure. But I mean, like, even like if we were to plot out the story structure, the Conjuring 2 and Conjuring 1 did not have the same story structure. But I don't know. It's not usually a very excellent track record for horror film sequels, but both Conjuring 1, Conjuring 2 were really good. And even if Conjuring 2 wasn't as good, I'm still glad I saw it. It was not bad. And
did you think Conjuring 2 is much worse than the first one?
not much worse, but yeah, I think that it was.
They're both considered pretty good, I think.
Yeah, I think the Conjuring 1 was scarier. It's just once you've seen Conjuring 1, I feel like there isn't anything in Conjuring 2 that is new enough to be scary. But they've had a long time to work in Conjuring 3, and I'm kind of hoping that maybe Conjuring 3 sparks something creative here, because all their Conjuring knockoffs are not very good or scary. So I don't know, but both Conjuring movies are good, and I'm hoping that this next one will be good too.
There is speaking of horror movies, there is a movie, I'm blanking on the name, I'm trying to Google it really quick. But I just found out about it because I saw a commercial for it. And it's Joe Keery from Stranger Things is starring, along with the girl from Modern Family. I forget her name. But
That's the premise.
First of all, I don't know who Joe Keery is. Like, I know Stranger Things. I don't know which person in Stranger Things.
He is the kind of, in season 1 he was kind of the douchey boyfriend who became a good guy.
Oh, okay.
He's actually my favorite character in this
name?
series.
I don't know. He works in the ice cream place in the 3rd season.
Yes.
That
Yes.
one. Okay.
So it might be called Spree. I'm not sure. I don't remember that's what it's called though. I don't know. Don't let me keep it too.
Oh, I also want to mention Godzilla versus Kong.
Oh yeah.
I'm a huge Godzilla fan, so I'll just see any Godzilla movie.
Maybe it is spring. Okay. But yeah,
I'll probably actually go see that one in theaters too. Like, man, big monsters beating the shit out of each other. You want a big screen for that.
I haven't seen any of the new Godzilla movies. I saw King Kong, but I have been meaning to watch them. So maybe this will be the thing that like, cause I'm kind of interested in just watching all of the free movies that come out on HBO Max. Like, why not? There's releases, and it's kind of cool that we're gonna get them that fast. So I might end up watching this, and maybe I'll watch all the previous ones so I can get caught up. We'll see. But yeah, I'm interested in that too. Is there anything else big coming out that we didn't touch on?
Probably. I just can't think of anything off the top of my head. Oh, there's a new Mortal Kombat movie?
Oh,
I don't know anything about this, but
that has the potential to be interesting.
Yeah, maybe it'll beat Sonic the Hedgehog and Pikachu is the best video game movie.
Oh, I think is the new Sonic movie coming out in 2021? It might be.
They're making a sequel already?
One got announced.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know too much about it. But
anyway. But what I want for the sequel is for them to go back to the original design. Like, let's.
Oh yeah. That would be cool. But okay, that's what we're looking forward to in 2021. If please subscribe and follow us so you can hear us talk about all these exciting new projects in the future. Like I mentioned, the episodes are going to come out a little less frequently now, so it is more important than ever that you subscribe so that you know exactly when the new episode is dropped. So please give us a like, please give us a subscribe. Feel free to comment if you have any suggestions for things that you think might be interesting for us to watch. And until next time.
Take it easy, everybody.